Hello, welcome to the fourth session of Ecological Dynamics of Skill. I'm Duarte Araújo, and together with Pedro Passos, we have completed 1 month of a webcast full of practice-informed theory, grounded on scientific research and where the sport phenomenon is the one that guides our discussions. This means that research inform but do not dictate our understanding. I'm sorry, there was some noise behind, but I can continue. This means that this means that theory and research inform but do not dictate our understanding of sport behavior. This is an important nuance because we are not shaping the phenomena to the theory, but we keep open to everything that sport in its ecology can teach us as a fascinating sociocultural activity as sport is. Taking the environment seriously is a core tenet of ecological dynamics. This is precisely where the term ecology came from, understanding the reciprocity and the mutuality between the eco-niche and the organism. This does not mean that we do not conduct experiments in the laboratory, but these experiments should be carefully designed to be representative of the affordances of the sport setting under study. Moreover, we can also understand the richness of the affordances provided by the nature environment and understand why the embeddedness or the immersion in such nature settings is so impactful on what performers do, feel, and think, or simply in how they perform. This is precisely a key topic for Professor Ludovic Seifert from the University of Rouen, Normandy, in France. One of my favorite of his research papers, the role of route previewing strategies on climbing fluency and exploratory movements, concludes that when the climbers are visualizing a boulder before they climb it, there is much more of perceptual attunement to nested affordances than a memorization of what to do once they start climbing. This contradicts the traditional belief that behavior in the boulder must be pre-planned. Ludovic, it is really a pleasure to have you here with us, and I would like to start by asking why is it different to perform in nature comparing with performing in built environments, and how this nature-based performance can enhance our understanding about performance.
Thank you, Duarte, for the nice introduction. So it's a pleasure for me to contribute to the webcast. So it's a very good question. First, you talk about previewing a route. So when you get indoor to practice, for instance, rock climbing, you have color hold everywhere. So you can see the wall, could be white, could be yellow, and then the color hold are usually with another color. But when you get outside, you never know the color of the rock, if the color of the rock is indicating hold, something you can grasp, except if you have some chalk on the rock. So it's more exploration, more exploratory behavior that can help you to climb the route or to climb the boulder. And the role of previewing is very important. I would say that in that case, previewing is not something in your mind because you are already immersed in the environment, touching the rock, looking around, taking different views to approach the boulder. So even if you are not already in the climb, you are already interacting with the boulder itself. So in my view, this kind of richness helps you to see some micro property of the environment that you maybe neglect when you are indoor because you are more attracted by the color of the hold, and then you, for instance, you can forget to apply friction on the rock, which is also part of climbing. It's not only grasping hold, it could be just apply some friction, push and pull your body on the rock itself.
And do you think this link with nature can generalize to other more general tasks, for example, like walking or running in nature comparing with walking or running in the city? What do you think of that relationship?
Yeah, so not in our group, but in ecology, there are some nice studies made by Matisse, looking at the gaze behavior when you are walking in a random or hazard terrain. like trail running, when you practice trail running instead of walking on a flat and clean ground, and showing that the, the, the property or the shape of the ground completely change your gaze behavior, but also your motor behavior. So I believe that in the ground, just for walking, hiking, scrambling, mountaineering, we experience something different when we are outside that indoor. And the same in the water, and the same if it's snowy or icy.
Why do you think that happens?
I think that because of the property of the surface, for instance, if it's muddy, because after the rain, then it becomes slippery. So you don't expect that. Or if it's rocky, it might be also slippery. So I imagine that when you walk normally, you have just your routines. And once you experience to slide, then you experience what is this property, this slippery ground, which was not expected. Because you never know if you will slip a lot or not, depending of the kind of mud, the kind of rocks. So it's always through acting that you perceive how it's muddy, how it's slippery. You can't always predict what would be your interaction with the nature.
Very nice. Pedro.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, Ludo. So
Hi.
let's talk about, I really don't know how I'm going to put this question to you, but I would like to talk about some kind of duality that might exist between representativeness and risk. Because when we talk about outdoor activities, the risk is always present, no matter if you go climbing or surfing or even, I don't know, running in a mountain or mountain biking. So you said that when we need to create some learning designs, especially indoor learning designs, you try as possible that those kind of learning designs are representative of what happened in nature. But we both know that it is not true. So my first question is, when we create a learning design, a representative learning design, indoor learning design, what do we lost compared with nature? And how can you measure, if you can measure, how much do we lost for going indoors?
So that's a very good question. I used to think that for instance, if I take the example of climbing, I used to think that climbing indoor, by doing so, we lost the richness of the possibilities offered by outdoor bouldering or climbing. And finally, after looking some video by high top level climbers like Adam Andra or so, I feel that they, by setting some big problems in indoors, they learn to create new possibilities, new kind of movement that help them to face new problem outside. So finally, I revise my mind about losing something in indoors. However, to save the richness of indoor environment, the setter, so the route setter in climbing, must do a lot of work to give to design rich environment. So to give the possibilities of all learners or climbers to express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I give you an example. If you increase the difficulty of a route by increasing the distance between two holds, what we can think that only people with small arms get a problem, and people with long arms will keep going. So if you play on very basic metrics like the distance between two holes, the size of the holes, I think you minimize the complexity of the problem of climbing. But if now you save a high level of complexity by playing on the shape of the hole, the way you can chain those different holds, just because you have a problem of route findings, so find the route, then you save a high level of complexity as you can find in outdoor. One way to do that and to measure that or to study that is, something is I've done is I design a route, an easy one, and then I had some noise, as Sholon could suggest. So I put some useless hold, something that you won't grasp because it's very small, very difficult to grasp. So I had some noise just to see how it disturbed the way the people can find the routes.
Mm-hmm.
So one way is to propose a route with a simple path, and then to add some noise and to examine how they behave differently in these two conditions. It's just an example.
Okay, no, nice. No, I just want to hear your opinion. You know that during the first lockdown, I watched a fantastic movie, which made me very, very nervous, even if I was sitting on my couch. It was, I think you saw the Free Solo movie.
Yeah.
Regarding, for those who are watching us, it's about the climbing the El Capitan. Now, Ludo, I want to know your opinion about that. What comes to the mind of a climber that decided to climb the El Capitan with no safety? That's the thing that most impressive. Why, if we have ropes, if we can use all the security, why climbing without security? Can you explain, please? Because I really don't know. But for me, it's easy. If a small mistake, 500 meters, or I don't know, it's the only mistake we can make. There is no mistakes to make.
Okay. Let's say that I don't know if ecological dynamics can explain that. So I'm not sure that the question you have is specific to our framework.
We can try.
But I would say that what we assume when we talk about the ecological dynamics framework is the strong interaction between an individual and his environment. Mm-hmm. And in this interaction, there's not only a perceptual and motor aspect, but also emotional and decisional aspects. So self-regulation is maybe one way to explain why people engage in this type of in this climb, just because they did it so many times before in very safe condition, with rope, with a partner, assistance. So they know it very, very well, and they know where is the crux point. So the crux point in climbing is the difficult point, the most difficult point of the route. So they know where they have to increase their level of attention, their level of awareness, and be very careful. So I think they know about that, and again, because they cope during their daily life to all this kind of activity, they are able to keep this high level of attention and be effective. There is a French guy called Spider-Man, the guy who climbed the building.
Yeah.
And in his younger, so now you must know he's injured and impaired. And he used to say that I'm not able to spend one day without training in free solo condition. So every day he's doing 8A on the French scale in climbing, because he need to get this high level of engagement. And again, I think that risk is part of your to keep a high level of awareness and attention. It's not only taking risk; it's just to oblige you to be completely connected to your to the environment.
Okay. Now, one more. Duarte, allow me one more question. Okay. Sometimes we saw climbers, but also skiers, imagine what they need to do. For instance, when I watch all the conditions from the ski during the winter season, and sometimes the people filmed the broadcasting the back doors, and we can saw skiers imagining all the track they need to do. And also when we watch climbers, they are imagine what kind of route they're choosing. So this isn't it a little bit contrasting with the ecological dynamics framework? Because it seems that this cognitive strategy of imagining what I need to do lead the performers to improve or at least be prepared for what they will face. So can you give us a clue why this pure cognitive strategy may help in an ecological setting as climbing or skiing or mountain biking?
Yeah, I think planning is not contradictory with the ecological view. If planning means restricting the possibilities of action, because then you are obliged to apply what you plan, of course, it's the wrong way and the wrong view. But if planning is just to imagine the different affordances existing in this ecological niche, then you are going in one way, and if something is going wrong, you are just self-regulated your behavior and going to another way. So in the same times that you plan something, you are also planning the backup. You are also planning the way back.
Yeah.
So you have a safe B plan. It's not planning only what to do and keep going. You also have another solution, and all those solutions emerge during the online interaction with the environment. So you are not restricted to what you plan. You have just planning all the possibilities of actions.
No. Okay.
And I think I know you like surfing. I'm sure that when you go surfing, sometimes the waves are higher than you expect, or the current is stronger than you expect, and you adjust the way you do the takeoff, or you follow the wave according to how you feel the wave. And you have a plan in your mind at the beginning, but then the plan is changing all times.
Yeah. Usually when I go surfing and the waves are higher than I was expecting, I sit on my car and watching the waves and the real surfers doing the waves. Okay, Eduardo, it's your turn, Eduardo.
Very, very nice issues. I like to highlight that, you are clearly aware of them. The studies from Rob Pipers, he clearly showed that changes in emotion change the way you perceive affordances. So it means that doing climbing in different settings will also make you perceive differently. And I think this has also to do with solo climbing and how this solo climbing induces variability and high engagement, high embeddedness and embodiment in the task they are doing. So I think there are some of the research made on ecological dynamics that also offer some hints into this. But I also to comment a little bit on the idea of planning. And I think you're absolutely right that maybe a different kind of planning can be defined, something that is planning about what to perceive and not how to act, not exactly telling how you have to move your fingers and your body, but what are the affordances where you can then explore and feel how you can use your effectivities into them. So this is also a different way of more pointing you towards directions than precisely prescribe what to do. And I think your example is very good into that. But I would like again to go into this involvement into nature that Pedro was also mentioning, this idea of having risk, but also having intense variability. Your interaction with nature is never the same. So there is change in what you have to perceive and also the change in how you have to act. Do you think this also implies that you are more into the actions, you are more cognitively and intentionality into your actions than when you are in such a setting that it's so boring that you go elsewhere, you go thinking about your dinner? And so this type of environment implies you as a whole and not just to initiate a routine of interaction. Do you have ideas about these differences in contexts and how they engage people?
Yeah, so sure. So I have experiences that I can share as a mountain guide and not only as a scientist, because when I go mountaineering, we know that we have to keep the time because the temperature is changing, the weather is changing. So if we have 5 hours scheduled to complete the trip, we can't be in 8 or 9 hours because then it becomes dangerous. So I would say when you engage yourself, you are fully engaged and 100% involved. It's not, you can't talk or think about the rest of your life at this moment. You must be completely involved. And as a mountain guide, you are not only acting, but also responsible of your client. So you must be able to focus on him instead of focusing on you. So it means the environment cannot be followed, but must be predict in some way. And predict means all what can happen. If a rock can fall, if an avalanche can come, if you have to climb down. So you must find in advance all the possibilities. So finally, as a researcher now, when I want to design in indoor what could be the richness of outdoors environment, it's by saving this richness, this complexity, and for me, all reside in the decision making process. So if people have just to follow the route without making decision, I'm no more in outdoors activities. So I means I must design the environment in a way that people must decide, and if the wrong decision occur, it could be falling, it could be getting injuries, it could be death. Maybe not in indoors, but they have to think about that. They have to be aware about that, to protect themselves and to, so there's many ways to design in indoors this kind of settings for learning and to make them aware. I give you a brief example. For beginners, I put the starting hole and the end hole, and then I give them 5 holes they have to screw on the wall. I give them 5 and I say, you can use 3 of them. So they must decide what could be reachable, what could be graspable, and what could be usable to move from one to the next. So they take the responsibility. And because I give them the control of their decision and their actions, I believe that then they are more aware about the environmental properties. They are more able to detect, to pick up the relevant information and to act more safely. So a way of, for me, a way of teaching awareness and education to attention is to educate to self-control and self-regulation.
Very interesting. Pedro, would you like to bring some of the questions of our
from the chat? There is
there
is 2 interesting questions here. The first one is from Raul Sanchez, and he asks, many times the pre-visualization of the boulder is a social activity. Climbers commenting, touching the rock, gesturing and marking. Do you consider these to be representative design in the studies?
Yes, very good questions. We cannot ignore the cultural constraints. And the good point is when we talk about a boulder, about a route, we are also using special words like this hole is a pinch, oh, this word is a crimp. And so using this kind of words is already sharing how to grasp and how to use the hole. So I think it's just a way to express the different possibilities of actions. So again, it doesn't restrict what to do. It's just expressing all the possibilities of actions because it's always linked to your own capabilities, to your flexibility, to your strength, to your size. And when you comment, you also say, oh, these kind of things, I can do it. Maybe you can do it, but me, I cannot do it. I'm too small, or I'm not enough flexible for that. Look at my arm span. I can't get these 2 holds. So again, I think it's fine to share, but it just, for me, just expressing the possibilities of action. It doesn't dictate what to do, and it doesn't guarantee the success.
Okay, the second question that we have here is from Vera, and she asks, in climbing, the rock route is usually a very stable element, unless a hold breaks. Would you agree that in climbing, the other unstable elements, like the mental state of the climber, are emphasized?
So should I answer specifically about the mental state, or?
Yes,
I don't think the.
Well, she made another comment, said, and I agree that the psychological state of the climber is emphasized more outdoors than indoors. I would like to hear your comment regarding this, because
So,
this can be related with the representativeness of the task. We know that in indoors, the probability of a hole breaks is less than in outdoors. Okay.
yes, but uncertainty does not come only from the solidity of the hold, because from the ground, so what I've observed from my previous study about gaze behavior in climbing is when people preview the route from the ground, they watch very well the wall until 7 meters high, and above 7 meters, there are few fixation, just because it's too far away. So if you have a route of 16 meters, even if the route is stable, always there, if you climb the route on site, so for the first time, you can't see the hold very well. Maybe with binocular, but again, I'm not completely sure that you can see what is the characteristic of the hold. So you can always make prediction, but then you discover during the ascent what is really the hold characteristic. So the graspness of the hold. Yeah, there's many ways to trick the climbers. So I don't think that the stability makes the predictability. It's not because it's stable that it's fully predictable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I think that point is very good because also according to the time of the day, the humidity, the temperature, and all these things change also the way you can grasp and how you can climb. So there's more than a simple view of stability. And based on that, there is one more question, but I would like just that you can comment a little bit on what you learned from ice climbing. That according if you did the pass once or twice, it will change completely the pass. And also, as time goes by, the temperature is also changing and it will change the way you can climb. So can you tell us a little bit about this, how the ice is changing over time when someone is climbing?
Yeah, so when you climb, okay, let's say the process is very complex because everybody thinks that to climb safely, it must be a very cold temperature, so -0. But in fact, the most important is how the temperature are fluctuated. So if today it's +5 and tomorrow it's -20, then the water goes in holes, and then it's the ice is full of water, and when it becomes cold, it just expands, and if you hit the ice at this moment, it explodes completely. The inverse is better. If it's -20 and it turns to +2 or +3, it becomes softer. So if you climb during this day, it's okay. But if then it turns to +10 the next days, then it becomes dangerous because some water is between the ice and between the rock. So the ice part is just far from the rock. There is no more attached. So what we try to understand is how the ice evolve day to day, and the due day, we try to find a safe route. It means when the ice is attached to the rock and not freestanding or stalactite, because then there is just 1 point or 2 points of attached, and then the tension of the ice is very, very high. So then the only way is using the blade of the ice axe, like to detect how the sound is, how the anchor is, and finally the ice axe is like your hands when you do rock climbing.
Yeah,
It's an
very interesting.
extension of your body. It's part of your body.
Very nice.
And you get a lot of information from the grasping of the hacks.
You have the sound, you have the vibration of the handle in your hand, you have the vision, you see if the blade is going depth or not, deep or not. So you have many information giving you you can know the stability of the blade, and if it's stable, you don't need to have a deep anchorage.
Yeah.
So then it's inform you of the quality of the anchorage and if you can go up. And again, you have the color of the ice, because depending on the color, you know if it's very soft or thick. So it's many information that you can see before and sometimes only during.
Yeah. How long it takes for a climber or a performer that needs to perform with some kind of tool? Just your opinion, how long it takes for a climber get this level of accuracy of getting all the information that he needs from the grasping the hacks? Because we know that in the early stages of learning, we don't feel these. And later on, we can feel everything. And this is true for all the kind of sports, of the kind of activities, then when we need to manipulate tools, a ball, a mountain bike, a surfing board, whatsoever. So do you have any idea how long it takes for a performer to get this?
Okay, so I did some studies about the transfer between rock climbing to ice climbing and the inverse. Just because when you practice ice climbing, you can practice only part of the year during the winter time.
Yeah.
And some climbers climb also with the ice axe on the rock. It's called dry tooling, and they improve a lot their accuracy. And one reason is because instead of swinging the ice axe, just use the blade as a hook. And by doing so, they increase the accuracy. So I would say if you teach learners movement skill, like use your ice axe like a hammer, then you might observe strong swinging actions. But if you ask them to be accurate, you will see that they won't use the shoulder, but they will initiate the movement from the elbow and doing just small movement to be accurate. So if you associate ice axe to hammer, I think it's maybe the wrong representation. So that's maybe I don't like the cognitivist approach, because I just say, okay, I bring 3 or 4 different kind of ice axes. Just take them in your hands, feel them, see how feel the inertia, how the mass is distributed depending on the shape of the axis, and then try to make some swing. And the only constraints I give is you can swing twice, and the second time must be the definitive anchorage. So I constrain them to find a way to anchor, and what I observe is naturally they reuse the first hole they did for the second time. So imagine you swing the ice axe, you make a small hole. The second time you want to reuse this hole because it would be easier to anchor your blade. That's something completely natural.
Yeah.
So then I focus the learner of the environment instead of focusing on the type of movement. So if they do so, if they manage so well, it goes very, very well.
Yeah.
It goes very fast, so they learn very fast.
It is very interesting, and you are also touching upon one question from Lisa Musculus from the Cologne Sports Cologne University, and she asked if we can weight the impact of the motor or the cognitive systems on climbing. So it's something that you can see what is more responsible for that or not. Can you comment on that, Ludo?
It's difficult because I won't separate motor and cognitive system from the active system, so the motor system.
Yeah.
I won't separate, motor and cognitive. I would say they are interacting like the perceptual and the emotional system. All is it's a wall. Just because if you expect the ice being soft and to anchor easily your blade, and finally there is a rock behind or it's completely thick, and you have a poor anchorage, you will experience some emotion and bad emotion from that. So I wouldn't say that you can predict what would be the weight of one system versus another one. Each time we have expectation, and what's happened is far from our expectation. We have maybe other decision to make, and emotion coming, and self-regulation to organize to. So it's difficult to answer this question. I just think that with expertise and experience, you maybe are more able to self-regulate, so to be less surprised by your environment and find alternative more easily. Again, just a quick example. If when I start a 30 meters ice fall climbing, and I consider the climb like the whole ice fall, I'm scary. I'm afraid of doing that. But if now I break the ascents in small sections, and I fix my goal like 3 meters away because I think this place is safe, then the problem is smaller. So I would say to understand the weight of the cognitive weight of this activity is maybe by breaking the wall ascents in small problem.
Yeah, well, what you're saying is also that action is itself the way of solving the problem. So action is inherently cognitive in itself. It's not something separate from each other. So this is a question that also assumes that we can separate this, and that is not maybe so easy to do. But before we close, I think there is time for one question. Pedro, if you'd like to
yeah, I
raise
would like,
one.
because suddenly it appears well, following this reasoning that we are talking, Marianne Davis put a question, an interesting question, which is, can we support the skill learning without mental rehearsal? Because it seems that this is part of the climbing and also the surfing and the skiing, canoeing, whatsoever. And she asked, can we support skill learning without this kind of mental rehearsal, without the previewing the performance? Well, it's similar to the question that I put before, but the main question is, can we simply avoid this mental rehearsal, or it is fundamental for skill learning?
This is this is a very good question, because I think there is a lack of study about that. There is one study by Xavier Sanchez showing that we don't improve the fluidity or the performance in climbing, but we just improve the dexterity. There is another study that I made where I showed that by doing a preview, we organize, or we structure a bit more our ascent by perceiving the wall as nested affordances instead of separating the ascents step by step. It's not a step-by-step approach. We perceive it as a wall. So previewing helps us to perceive the whole problem. But some recent research, so I was examiner of a PhD, showing that if you allow too much importance to previewing, and then you try to follow what you preview, and you make a wrong prediction, it brings you to the wrong way. So then you have to correct online. So I would say, but again, we need more studies to confirm. But I would say that previewing is more to get all the possibilities of actions, like a panel of actions, instead of saying this is that one. So it's more like envisaging all the resources and then trying one. If it doesn't work, getting in mind the way back, the B plan. And in that view, some climbers, or most of the climbers, like to do post view. So not preview, but post view. So it means once they experience the problem, if they success or if they fail, they try to remember, so to what caused the success or the fail, to then save what works and change what was wrong. So I also like the idea of post view and not only pre-view.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting how these processes are all entangled, and maybe when we try to separate that, we are losing the phenomena itself, the behavior itself. So that is why it's interesting, these discussions and these different ways of understanding the phenomena. We are arriving to our end of the session, and it's been a very nice and fast one, Ludovic. Thanks very much for your comments and for your all your approaches to these complex problems. Also, thanks to all those that placed the questions and are following us on this webcast. Next week we will have Nelson Caldera. He is a high-level coach of football. He's maybe one that from a long time he's using ecological dynamics to guide his high-level practice. He has been playing in high-level teams in Portugal, in France, in Greece. So he has been really in major teams, making part of the staff and really applying ecological dynamics. So it will be interesting to see how he goes from theory to practice and practice to theory, and in his daily routines, working with the coach Leonardo Jardim. That will be next week. But before we close, maybe Pedro would like to talk about the Congress.
Yeah, just to reinforce the announcement that we will have our Sports Sciences Congress. It's a online version from 13 to 21st of July. I hope we can receive your abstracts. Again, it's a very nice opportunity to, well, communicate your last results of research with a very, very acceptable fee. And now just like to make an announcement that probably we will do an extended deadline for abstract submission. So be aware of the websites, and we can get some news from us very, very soon. Ludo, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Eduard.
Thank you. Have a nice week for you all.
Have a nice
Thank
week.
you very much.